Hello. So,
Hello.
welcome. Now, this is the YapperCast, everyone, and this has begun, episode 1. The topic is about video games and its culture, as well as its history. You may listen to the podcast as you may like. You may also chat along in the public group chat. Therefore, in the website of Twitch, you will see this picture as we will be speaking about the topic at hand. I'm your host, AzureParagon, aka Octazure, and my guest is you, some guy, right?
Hello.
Hello. All right. Now, as we begin, what are some things that you do have in mind right now, as far as anything
Hmm.
correlating to video games and its history and culture?
Well, let's see. I am one thing that has been on my mind for like the past few years has probably been just the overabundance of lackluster DLC for one.
Yes, I believe. Well, I mean, when it comes to downloadable content, I also feel like it's being mishandled in ever since the rise of just like a lot of online medium that can be just like used for just like finishing in-game content. When people use download content, they have to like pay for this and that, and it's a bummer. Since like the modern age, I think seventh generation and eighth generation especially, this is also a problem for PC gamers. So those that have like the means to be able to finish a game without having to download content is something that can be greatly missed, especially in the older days of gaming. I also feel like downloadable content should be reserved for things that are optional and not part of a mandatory component of a game, such as its story or campaign.
Yeah, I I never fully understood ever since DLC and online updates came about. I'm all I, I hope it's not just me, but whenever I buy a new game, I despise the fact that when I get it home, I put it in the console, and I have to wait like 15 to 20 minutes before I can even play it. It has to update like the other half of the game, you know?
Right?
Like, what the hell's on the disc?
I get that the economy is lacking and since then, and when it comes to video game industries, it's like there's a fine line between just being greedy or those who are just truly in desperate need of just like maintaining the company and funds, but it seems they've been falling prey to this method a little too easily, almost like it's a trend. So I still think there are better ways to handle it, as well as sometimes better ways overall.
Well, I mean, like, from my understanding of the video game industry, a product usually goes gold roughly around like 2 to 3 months before launch. And when it goes gold, that means like that version is directly being copied onto discs and then sold. So, from my understanding, what they do is once it's going gold, they still continue developing it. They develop necessary updates and such for it prior before it's released, and once it's released, they basically just release those updates as like a required update or something. But
This is
like
true.
a part of me has always been curious what happens if you play a game without the day one patch.
I begin to wonder about that too. I've never experienced too much of it myself, but imagine having to play a game that was shipped early, or a version of it that you were not supposed to play. Then there are especially problems for that, and it even highlights it further if such a thing ever happens to like a consumer, and not just waiting until like a final product is already released for public, in common copies.
Yeah, but like now I'm just like really curious that I just want to try playing like a version 1.0 of a game without like the day one patch just to see what it's like, or if it'll even boot up at all.
Yeah, it can be pretty concerning, and I can only imagine how easily this could happen in a PC game versus a console game. And usually they're coded differently to make sure it works on a console, all completely prepared. But even then, it's even worse if it's like a video game that actually requires internet connection for some of the most basic things. Some companies have done this on purpose, and I can definitely see the notoriety of like AAA studios doing this compared to how it was either back then or versus the indie studios.
Well, how do I put this? Well, I mean, like, I don't really mind a broken game sometimes. Sometimes a broken game can be just as fun as a good one. In terms of like by good one I mean like incredibly polished and bugless. Bugs are just like a very acquired, stupid flavor sometimes, so long as it's not game crashing or soft locking.
This is true.
Like like look at games like Melee, Sonic 06 even. I mean, I know even that game has an audience with how how just swarmed it is of glitches and bugs. Like at the end of the day, bugs can give like a bit of a flavor, but yeah, I understand why a lot of them would have to be patched out.
Yeah, and you'll even have some of the most devoted fans who will actually be willing to modify and fix up the game in order to finally bring it to its potential that it was originally intended for.
Yeah, like the Skyrim fan patch.
Yes.
That's on Steam. There was a fan patch, if I recall, that was created entirely by fans for the original PC release of Skyrim. Now, if I recall, uh, it actually did fix an
Yes.
enormous amount of problems, especially with the NPC pathing. Have you ever seen Have you ever seen how weird some of the Skyrim NPCs can be, or just how unintentionally startling they can behave sometimes?
Yes, quite a bit sometimes. I do tend to lurk on players who play Skyrim on Twitch from time to time on occasion. Hell, a person I'm following even has been playing it recently, so I definitely can see what you mean.
When I was when I tried playing it on my own for the first time, it was modless. It was on the Xbox. I remember I was outside of Whiterun and I just saw a fucking mammoth, dude. Just kind of like fall with like no falling animation, just going down. I don't even know what happened, but
Wow,
it was just falling at like a really slow pace. I tried to get closer. Once I did, uh, it disappeared out of the sky and was just dead on the ground, like it happened a long time ago.
right?
I don't know what happened. It was like this is when Skyrim first came out. I had my Xbox 360. I closed the game immediately because I thought it was haunted. It was
Wow.
like the
That
year of like creepy pastas and such. So I was like,
that's certainly an
you know
experience
what
to
I
be
mean?
held on.
Yeah, that definitely left an experience, man.
Well, that being said, sometimes it also reminds me how there are very terrifying game glitches that are just mostly for aesthetic and accidental creepypasta ideas, even though they're really, some glitches are actually harmless ultimately, but for however brief they can be, they do provide some pretty bizarre experiences that naturally you're not supposed to experience, even if it might be a common glitch on certain like 3D games.
So something akin to like corruptions.
Maybe, yes. I mean, imagine seeing like the exoskeleton or the anatomy of an average human model in a video game for a split second. Then you got something going on. Or some weird like disfigured moments that was not supposed to happen in the game because of a movement or an input that you committed.
Yeah, I think I understand what you mean. Um, I had this bootleg uh cartridge for my Game Boy Advance when I was like much younger. It was
Yes.
like one of those multiple in one carts. It had like some Game Gear games on it, and one of the bootleg Sonic games had like the copyright and such removed.
Oh no.
Um, it it had like really weird audio effects, and I think it played at like 2/3 full speed. It was not it was not pleasant.
Youch.
I I just like how do I describe it? It's kind of like going to a rave after a root canal.
Hmm. I mean, that is quite an unusual transition. You don't see too many people doing something quite like that, or remotely close.
Yeah, that's the best way I can describe how just uncomfortable it was to play. I remember I actually got rid of the cartridge, actually threw it into the vent of my
That?
room.
Wow. I mean, I didn't realize you were that frightened about it. And I thought, like, maybe, I don't know, somebody throwing a cartridge of a Haunted Majora's Mask game would, like, be understandable. Totally.
I, well, I mean, like I was like 9. I was a big pussy dude.
Well, I wouldn't blame you if you also started screaming like a little girl running away from your room and slamming the door shut. Uh,
I was playing my Game Boy one evening,
oh no.
and I decided to put in
Oh,
my Chinese Sonic cartridge. When I turned it on, there was just Sonic, and he was like, "You like jazz?" And hyper-realistic blood spewed out his nipples. I turned off the cartridge, and I turned around, and it was Sonic. And he said, "That was kind of fucking rude, dude." And he left my house.
wow. That's one way to put it, I suppose.
I don't know. I don't know what I was going for. I was just like reminiscing those old gaming creepypastas that came out years
Mm,
ago.
yeah, it does make me think back to the urban legends and urban myths of video games. I'm not sure if I actually showed
Oh
you a
yeah.
YouTube link of it before, but they did recently post one of the channels. Fairly recently posted. It was Watch Mojo actually. They posted a top 20 video game urban legends.
Yeah, I was thankfully in school around the time while urban legends for gaming was still like roughly a thing.
Hmm.
I remember one friend shared with me this rumor that in Pokemon Diamond we could actually go to Johto if
Well,
I did some like stuff right. He lied. Massive. Yeah, he was a liar, man.
it's
I
very easy to lie on stuff like that. They even make you pull off some of the
yeah,
silliest things back in the really, really early internet days. We're talking like the millennial years. Well, at least
I
in my time.
remember. Yeah, I remember there was a not really a rumor, there was like a YouTube video for Kingdom Hearts 2 how to play as Riku in Kingdom Hearts 2, and one of the steps was literally punching yourself in the balls.
I
Here's
mean,
the thing though, I was 7 years old.
oh geez,
I
I
didn't know better.
that kind of reminds me about roughly your age. This was during the Nintendo 64 era, but they actually had like this thing where people thought there was going to be like an amazing like secret legendary Pokemon beyond Mew. So it's like, oh, it's Pikachu, and they consider it like a Pokemon god of some sorts that you're supposed to like
Uh-huh.
that you could if you could try to like get it through like a cheat or unlock or super weird like esoteric set of techniques if you had like Pokemon like Red, Blue, or Yellow back in the original Game Boy days. But it turns out it was just Marill, a Johto Pokemon from Generation 2, so it quickly got debunked. But it's funny how people theorize and spread that kind of information back when the internet was still in its medieval ages.
Maybe someone's dad really did work for Nintendo.
I don't know about that, but all I'll say is it kind of reminds me of the whole like Luigi's L is real 2401, and then somebody actually tried to make that really
That was
happen
real?
24 years later since Super Mario 64's original release date and year. Yeah, have you ever heard of that urban legend? L is real
You
2401?
wanna know something interesting about
Huh?
Yeah, and you wanna know something interesting about that legend?
What?
Um when when there was hackers who actually found the Mario 64 source code on Nintendo servers,
Mm. They
I
did
think
get
it was
fragments of the Luigi 3D model. That's a
like 1 or
first.
2 years ago.
Hmm.
So, L was real.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know if it was like actually the case, like completely authentically, or they kind of did this on purpose in order to make that come true. Because it does, can't help but feel a little bit like there's a sneaking suspicion that they were able to make it come true just because they had the means and the resources to do so obtained.
No, 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 no. Let me explain. In the source code, it wasn't done, but there was actually a Luigi. There was actually a untextured Luigi model
Yes.
somewhere in the servers, if I recall. And I don't know how multiplayer is going to work, but I think they were probably going to try for
Yeah.
like top and bottom split screen. There are now that we have like the source code and such, people have created little compilers that allows you to compile the entirety of Mario 64 into an executable for your PC.
Yes.
And people have actually created a multi. They've actually created functional multiplayer for it, and I thought that was actually pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it does take me back to those like, the ever expanding sub community of like Super Mario 64 Online and its players, and not to mention some of them are
Oh
modders and
yeah.
hackers.
Oh my god, we gotta play that together sometime. That'd be great.
It would be certainly something to try. I haven't played emulators in many years, but it's never too late to start back again and see what's changed, I guess you could say this is me going through like a Rip Van Winkle effect as far as being a furry artist who looks over the video game community but doesn't really play that many games anymore. If any of the video games I've been playing recently were offline and on a console. So it's very, it's a private session. So it's like, okay, yeah, I'm not streaming video games. I'm not even playing online with people. I'm just, casually gaming for my own recreation, kind of like how it was in the really old school days before internet was really common inside video game consoles.
Yeah, I think I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned this before, but even though I have played Skyrim quite a lot, both on the Xbox 360 and on PC, I have actually been giving Elder Scrolls Oblivion some much needed love after many years of not playing it. And this year, the one I've been playing is on the PS3. So yeah, it's I've been playing as another Argonian.
Who doesn't play as an Argonian or a Khajiit at this point? They're the fun ones.
Yeah, it always like tickles my bone whenever you have like a partner that follows you in Skyrim, for example, and it's like, oh look, it's the one that has a has an accent, and it turns out this ally of yours is who ventures with you is a Khajiit or a feline creature of some sort. And it's like I keep thinking at first it was an Argonian, but it's not. But it's like the funny thing is like you can tell this character is clearly different from the humans because of the way he sounds and the way he talks, and not just the way he looks. If at any moment you see the character, that is.
I, I'm quickly thinking back. I think there was actually like a fan made expansion for Skyrim that actually allowed you to visit a little bit of elsewhere
Oh,
where the
that's neat.
Khajiits are from. Yeah, there's even like it's surprisingly detailed. Like I feel like these guys just kind of became little little Tamriel historians, went through the ancient archives, looked up all the little Khajiit lore, compiled it into one little expansion.
Just goes to show how much faith and trust you got to put in those people. People may be modders and hackers, but that doesn't mean they're going to be malicious towards anything like that. It's just for video games, after
What?
all.
Well, I mean, like it's a little hard to be malicious with mods.
True.
Plus, I think most mod sites kind of look for viruses, namely like Nexus mods, you name it.
Yeah, but I'm
I
just also saying that there's if we're talking about like creative people in the community and like fan games and fan mods, most of them are not, toxic. It's like, okay, yeah, this is nothing like the Call of Duty and like fucking like Battlefield and like Halo multiplayer stuff where you got some people who come on and hack, but they're mostly like very they do whatever it means to get what they want. It's like, okay,
yeah.
that's not going to sit well with me as a PC gamer. In the console days, you could enter into those things, but you would get in big trouble like very quickly, easily.
You were well, yeah. Honestly, now that I think about it, I don't think I remember the last time I played an online game and I just heard a child screaming, "Get doscoped, bro!
Oh
Get
no.
doscoped! I fucking had sex with your mom, dude! Get doscoped!"
I can easily
Like,
imagine Slippy Toad from Star Fox talking exactly like that while like sitting down and playing with the controller.
I'm just like imagining his face absolutely red.
Ouch. I mean,
Like
that
his
make a good
face
little
literally
Star
a foot
Fox
from his
fan
little
comic
screen.
skit. What's up?
Uh, the fan comics, what are they called?
It's just what
Fox
I
in
thought of, like
Space.
Slippy Toad saying stuff like that while he's playing like an FPF multiplayer from space.
Watch it not even be like an FPS. It's just FPS. It's just like something really casual, like Minecraft, but he's like just so overblown with it. Like, get the fuck out of my room, Fox! I'm playing Minecraft.
Yeah. Oh Lord. I wonder what Fox would typically play. I mean, you can kind of guess. Well, one could probably guess based on personalities. You know, it's like, oh, what these video games you play says something about you.
Oh god, it's like one of those personality test kind of things.
In a way, but it's like what would Fox McCloud play? What would Falco play? What would Sleepy play?
Bro, Fox would probably play like dating sims because maybe he'd be like, maybe if I learn how to date, maybe Krista will like me.
Now I begin to wonder what Wolf O'Donnell would play. I see
Like,
Falco playing competitive multiplayer games, hands down, or at least like simulations that like you kind of have to like beat your own high score.
I feel like Falco would probably be like playing competitive tourney games, like local. I just imagine
Mm.
that every time but he's like really bad at it. Every time he loses, he smashes whatever controller he has onto the ground into multiple bits. It happens every time.
Mm. I
He has
could.
enough Smash controllers in his room.
Oh my god, yeah. I can kind of see like
It's like a quarter of his room.
oh my god, yeah. I can kind of see Wolf O'Donnell playing like tough games as well, by the experience, but he'd probably be playing like very different genres in my opinion. Like I can definitely see him playing something along the lines of like a real-time strategy game, for example, or at least something that is more I don't know, like combat oriented.
I don't know. He's kind of old.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
he
mean,
plays
not
board
terribly old,
games.
not like Peppy Hair, but we're talking maybe, I don't know. I mean, simulation games can work too because it's like, oh, look, it's got immersive. Oh, you need to like understand the facts and details like you would in real life. Oh, look, something compelling, and you need to pay attention to details. So it makes me think of like, if it's not competitive, just imagine like, I don't know, something you'd see from like, um, well, I want to know. I want to know if there's anything that's like a Minecraft, but a lot more like demanding. Like you got to pay attention to this and that, and nothing. Make sure nothing goes wrong if you're trying to construct something or explore. Do you know any like modern games that would have a similar example like that, where it's
Ark.
like yeah.
Yeah, Ark Survival Evolved might fit that bill, I think.
Mm. And speaking of strategy, the turn-based side, I mean, there's always Civilization. So that could work. Like you got a compelling story that's
Huh?
historically inspired, so not only do you have to pay attention to that, but you're also playing a game where you really have to pay attention to what's going on, who's doing what in your surroundings. So it's like, okay, I can kind of see like players like Wolf O'Donnell kind of getting invested into this.
I, I tried playing Civ 5. I think it was Civ 5 with a friend.
Hmm.
The game lasted, I think, almost a month.
Jeez,
No, Civ games can last a long time, man.
that's
They
like
can last a
that.
really long
I
time.
feel like that's what I call a real warfare.
And I remember that I don't know what he called me. It sounded like some weird word he improvised. It sounded like he improvised like a weird slur
Oh
in the heat of
no.
the moment. Yeah, I nuked him.
Okay, that's a solution.
Yeah, yeah, I nuked him. He was like, "Dude, what the fuck? What the fuck, dude?" Like he I don't think I've spoken to him in like 2 years.
Oh. That's something to think about. I mean, it's really up to you. I mean, you can always like rekindle those kinds of interactions at your own pace.
Nah, he lives in the nuclear wastelands now that I created with my single nuke.
Oh goodness, that is
Yeah,
amusing.
I think he was really pissed off because I actually went for him before the AI players,
Yes,
the artificial intelligence computer players, um, because after after I got rid of him, he just had to watch me and the AI just like tussle it out with nukes. I don't think I remember who won.
I
I think
see.
it was Prussia.
Hmm. Well, let's see. Um, when it comes to what am I thinking? Oh, fan games. That's what's coming to mind now. Some people really should be giving 'em plenty of credit for making some really amazing and crafty games that official developers never, bothered or thought of doing. In some cases, it's out
Yeah.
of complete creative liberty. In other cases, it's because the developers aren't finishing a game, like Half-Life 3.
Well, yeah. If you want to see like one game, if you want to see like one franchise, with probably like some of the best fan games I've ever played, I think it'd have to be the Sonic franchise.
Hmm.
You have like works like Sonic GT, Sonic Galactic. The fan games they make have like infinitely more soul than
Yeah,
whatever Sega's been chilling out recently.
it really rivals, the quality of official developers.
I don't think it even rivals that. I think it just beats it.
Hmm. Good point.
I'm just that confident in the I'm just really that confident in the fan game community there because they've made some really impressive stuff. Shown they've shown their skills.
Yes. I've also thought about, the mastery that is Kazi Inamuar. He's a very prolific game modder and fan game basically creator, hacker, whatever. He basically makes like some of the most famous Super Mario 64 mods, but one of my personal favorites that he's released that has gained him plenty of revenue um, in terms of its quality is The Legend of Zelda: The Missing Link, which, as the subtitle implies, is literally the gap filler between what happens at after the end of Ocarina of Time and before Majora's Mask. In my opinion, has to be one of his epitome masterpieces in fan games and the projects
Shit, I
that
want
his
to play
people
it.
made. What?
I want to play it. I may or may not be googling it now.
Naturally, it's a short game, but for a game like this of its scope, being a fan game with a small team, it's extremely impressive nonetheless. And it's just there's so much polish to it. There's so much authenticity to it. It really does feel like its own game that could easily be by Nintendo themselves and sold as an official Zelda game. Had they gone with this route, it would have been the Hero of Time trilogy.
Yeah. However, I guess we technically have a Hero of Time trilogy.
What makes
And
you
like,
think that?
well, Twilight Princess is like an honorary uh game within like Ocarina of Time Majora's Masks because it's so heavily involved. Like the hero shade for one.
Yes. I mean, it does tie a little.
Um,
Well, it's still an indirect sequel, much like the Wind Waker, but the difference is that it comes from the child timeline, the same timeline that Majora's Mask's events transpired. It's just with Twilight Princess, it takes place about a century after the event of Ocarina of Time. So it's a far gap, but it's in the same timeline as opposed to the adult timeline, which was divergent in the Wind Waker.
yeah, I'm not gonna pretend I know a lot about the Zelda timeline because I know it can get incredibly convoluted. I know you have like the fan made timeline, then you got the official one.
Yes. And then there's still some
Um,
ambiguity as to like where exactly is Breath of the Wild placed.
Actually, what is your favorite Zelda game?
It probably would have to be Majora's Mask, hands down. It took me a while to
Same.
appreciate it, but it's like, go nuts.
Yeah, man. Like Majora's Mask is also my favorite. Mostly, I just really love a game with like not necessarily a dark story, but like dark undertones.
Yes, the
Because
atmosphere is what really
the difference
captivated
between
me in the setting.
yeah, yeah, it feels this, yeah, it gives me like this vague Halloween feel, if that makes sense.
It does make, in my opinion, it does make it one of the best games to play on Halloween, especially like for kids.
Yeah, what I think probably makes it so good, like something I've learned about like dark stories is for a story to actually feel dark and not overly pretentious is
Hmm.
you have to kind of balance out the dark and moodiness with like a vague sense of hope or something.
Well, it does.
Like
It lends itself a sense of reward when there lies like an actual resolution that can be presented to the player should they have earned it.
yeah, but here's the thing.
Hmm.
In Majora's Mask, you actually cannot save everyone. That's the one thing that makes that game so different. You physically are unable to save everyone by doing every side quest, every main temple boss. You
It
are
does hold
physically unable to save everyone
like it does
before
hold
doing the
itself some.
final boss.
It definitely holds itself to some truth, grounded in reality that you can't do everything at once. You only have 3 days. You can only do one thing at a time, and be at one place at a time.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably where I feel like that train of thought's probably where people came up with like the really weird theories about the game.
Yeah.
Um, that aren't entirely not, which are they are actually kind of based. In fact, the reason for some of the design decisions was actually because during a break
Yes.
there was an instance where some of the Nintendo of Japan employees actually went to South Korea
Oh
for a
yes.
wedding for one of their colleagues. During that time, there was a threat of a North Korean missile strike or
I've
invasion.
actually listened to this story on one of their YouTube videos about this kind of stuff. But go on.
Yeah, apparently that actually inspired one of the side quests,
Yeah.
and I feel like the fact that they inspired a lot of the side quests based off their real life like experiences without like really filtering any of the anxiety that they felt or the fear. I feel
Yes.
that's probably what made like some of the side quests much more personal and kind of like really stand out even to this day
Well,
amongst more story-driven
yeah,
games.
and like it's like situations like that, while they're connected to the major looming threat of the main story, it makes the side stories that much more engaging. And honestly, I feel like, in my opinion, this helps enhance the storytelling of Majora's Mask as a whole, as long as you're willing to go through with it and not just try to beat the core game. That's what makes it so special, is that the minor story arcs actually help culminate a good story experience and not just for the main plot itself.
Yeah, the side quest is what made the game feel alive.
Yeah, it is good. I We haven't had much of a Zelda game that's done something that close to that ever since. I feel like Breath of the Wild definitely has that potential, but that's only because there's just so much content. There's so much little like things and people and dilemmas and tasks you can explore. A world that large leaves you wondering with so many little stories here and there that are seemingly random, but as long as it's well told, I'm not really complaining. I mean, I feel like Twilight Princess does a little bit of this too, but then it kind of goes off the rails. It's like, wait, what?
With Breath of the Wild, I feel like that was probably like the turning point for a more, I guess, a more mature story perspective. Because you literally start the game with all your friends being fucking dead.
Yeah, it.
That's literally like the main plot.
I can't
But
help but
like,
like feel like it's a lot very much inspired by the events from Avatar: The Last Airbender and Samurai Jack. I think everybody knows this.
I never watched either of those.
Well, the premise is pretty similar, so you'll definitely see what I mean when you start to watch those shows. They're really good, like really good cartoons. I kid you not.
There was if I recall, there was actually a oh
What? You
um
okay? What do you recall?
you're cutting out.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
All right, I think we're back in session. I think the internet may have hiccuped a bit for, a little bit. So what's up? You're speaking about the
Oof.
cartoons, and you said you saw something?
Oh no, I wasn't saying that I was talking about the cartoons. I was continuing about Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
Um, on about Breath of the Wild, I about the side quests. Something I didn't really enjoy too much about them was that I felt like they still held my hand quite a lot.
Hmm.
Like the mini map where it literally just shows me where I need to go, when I need to go, and what to almost like what to do to get there. That kind of what bugs me a little.
Well, I guess it's kind of a, I guess you could say it's sort of a side effect of like a lot of how modern games handle just going from point A to point B. So I'm not sure what else they could have done otherwise, unless they wanted to go with the more archaic route of like being a lot more cryptic. But other than that, yeah, it can be a bit of a repetition, when it comes to stuff like that. And you begin to wonder why this is always like this, even for a game that has so much like content and a lot of exploration to go through.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just don't like having my hand held or told where to go. Like, yeah, technically I could disobey it, but the game isn't designed around me disobeying the map. The
True.
game's designed around me learning to follow it and follow it exclusively, not to look at the literal beautiful landscapes of cell shaded glory. I have to keep my eyes on that little corner and make sure I'm going towards the dot. I hate it. I absolutely despise it. That's why I don't play Skyrim anymore.
I wonder if there's a way to turn that off because if anything, it's like, it just goes to show that like, games like that keep doing that loses its touch. It's kind of like how open world games, bigger is not always better. It's what's the content that counts and the meaningfulness of what you encounter during your exploration that matters. That way, it does not feel too repetitive or stale.
Well, the problem with like turning it off is just if you do, you're going to have a significantly harder time simply because of the fact that the game was designed around you using that map. There are no like written instructions or anything. You aren't expected to turn it off.
Hmm.
That's another one of the problems with it. And honestly, I don't think it even needs it. Hyrule Castle is a big enough landmark where I think you could easily do without the map. If someone sends you a screenshot of something cool they found over the internet and you see where Hyrule Castle is relative to that,
Yes.
I'm pretty sure your brain should just be able to just figure out where that is to some degree, and you can start looking. I just don't like the way they do it. I don't like how modern games handle navigation. It's absolutely rancid.
Hmm. It seems there's missing a middle ground solution to this that could really help satisfy your needs on this.
I don't really think there is a middle ground solution.
There isn't. That's the
The,
problem. There needs to be a way for that. Should somebody design an open world video game, um, whether it's a Zelda game or an Elder Scrolls game or something original.
yeah, like I said, I don't think there is a way to kind of get around that because you know it's just an expectation to have at that point. And the moment you take that out, you're suddenly going to have like a lot of questions about it, and
Yeah,
people are going to get frustrated with you and not buy it because they're going to be a little too daunted.
yeah, it's a shame. But
I
there are
just like a
some
game
things that
that
just
lets me
can't be
think for
helped,
myself,
especially some
I
certain
guess.
design philosophies that have an inherent flaw in their gameplay. But yeah, that's pretty much my 2 cents.
I just hope it gets better in due time. I mean, I know
Hmm.
Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out sometime next year, I think, or this year. I hope maybe they maybe rethink their strategy a little.
Well, they're supposed to release next spring, or so I've heard. It's a shame, but it's like, this is Nintendo. I'm pretty sure they know they need to get it completely right as possible with a Zelda game. They know they can't fail, not even the slightest.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah, like on the topic of like the whole mini map stuff, that's kind of why I like Elden Ring a lot more.
I could see that,
Because yes, there are waypoints technically in Elden Ring, but they're only waypoints that you create for yourself.
right?
Yeah, it doesn't. The game doesn't do it for you. You have to figure out everything on your own. And because of that, I can remember a lot more of Elden Ring's world than I could of Skyrim,
That's good because your mind is not
Breath of the
fixated
Wild
on a
even.
checkpoint. It's just like you actually are experiencing things the hard way, and you're able to remember it and learn from it firmly.
Yeah, it was a real adventure.
That's good. It's only a matter of time then, as with games evolve. Elden Ring seems to manage to puncture a good landmark for that kind of design philosophy for future developers to consider when they're making another open world game. I'm looking at you, Bethesda. Elder Scrolls 6 better be something quite like this, maybe even more polished.
I am absolutely nervous about Elder Scrolls 6. I I'm like just thinking about it makes me sweat a tiny bit because I really don't want the game to be any more dumbed down than what Skyrim was.
I mean, for one, I guess I can kind of see why people still like and prefer to play Oblivion and even Morrowind. If not for how tough some of its rougher design points was, just because it's an old game, but there's a lot of other things about it that make it rewarding that Skyrim just simply does not quite capture.
I actually tried Skyrim, not Skyrim. I actually tried Morrowind recently,
Yes, how was it?
and I actually enjoyed it a lot more than Skyrim.
Really? You see what I mean?
Yes,
It's like,
I'm
yeah, too much
I'm
streamlining.
I'm not talking from nostalgia. I'm actually talking about just like my pure experience. When I was given directions, I actually had to read out directions,
Right.
like
It's
how
it's not
you
that
know.
it's either they keep it vague on purpose or they just like, it only gives you what you need exactly as that, like barely, like just like, okay, yeah, that's good enough. Don't overdo it like some games do.
Yeah, it's just exclusively just handwritten directions. There's no waypoints. There's no anything. But reading them and putting all of that into like thought of where you are relative to where you are makes the world feel so alive. I
Yeah,
remember when I had to get to Balmora to start one of the main quests. I could have paid for the Silkstrider fast travel. Silkstrider fast travel. You only fast traveled in like certain towns to go to certain towns, but I chose to walk, and it was a lot more fun looking at the signposts. It made me feel like I was more there instead of like following what is basically a GPS.
right. Well, that's good. I just even let's just put it this way. If they do make an Elder Scrolls 6, even if they would have to put something similar to that, I really hope there's a way to turn it off and as well as reduce it. Like give us options basically. They could even be a cheeky and say and put it where it's like, "Oh, the default setting is that they don't have any hints. You can turn it on at your own discretion instead of the other way around, like most games that at least have the options, but it's like, oh, but if you want to do it the hard way, you're gonna have to turn it off manually.
Well, here's the thing though.
Mm,
I'm not talking about hints. I'm just talking about like the way directions are presented.
yes,
Um, and here's another problem. Just adding the option to just turn it off doesn't fix the problem. You're still going to have to write down instructions on how to get there. And when you do, no one's going to bother with that. It's human nature to go with the easiest path possible.
yes,
It takes a very special person to like take any harder path than what is default. There's literally no point. They need to either go with one or the other. That's the thing.
yeah. To do it the hard way, especially after that, it's like it does take it takes a special level of like deliberation.
And that deliberation isn't something someone's going to have the entire time when they know that there's just an insta fix.
Yeah, it's like, okay, one goes with the flow, the other person actually goes a hard route on purpose because they have a reason. It's like, wow, they really think for themselves instead of like, going for convenience. And it's like, sometimes that is a good thing. It's like, okay, they're not taking the easy way out of this, so I can applaud them for that.
Yeah, but here's the problem with that.
Yes?
When you still have the option for like a map and instantaneous waypoints, you're not going to get enough people on the I'm going to think for myself and make my own path train. A lot of people are just going to stay on
Yes. I mean, what can I say? Even the
like open world games. Like they're designed for a really low common denominator that
mm,
makes it much more easier and friendlier to sell. That's the problem.
yeah.
They aren't. They just aren't fun that way.
It's just like the developers, most people just don't do it the daring way. It's like, oh, you should respect your old fans, but they don't do that. It really is just for the mainstream. It's like, okay, yeah, and the fact that they would do something like that, and the fact that there are some people, the rarity of people being able to think for themselves and make that decision, it just goes to highlight it more and more, like what the glaring problem. But it's also even more impressive that, however rare those people try to not take the easy route go. But it's like the fact that the fact that such an option exists in the first place is really what sets the catalyst for like even more people just going for the convenient route anyway, even if they probably thought they wanted to just venture out things the hard way. Like, you know,
Because
it's more
well,
rewarding.
it's because these games aren't designed to be played in the inconvenient way.
Yeah. It kind of sucks. I
They're
mean, it doesn't have to go super hardcore. I mean, this is not like Final Fantasy 11. The old like the game that comes before Final Fantasy 14, 11 was actually not designed to be accessible. It was designed to make you grind, claw, scratch your way through it. And it's not for everyone, but to those who stuck around and also went through the exhaustion of paying monthly, they found a lot of intrinsically rewarding stuff about it and positive comments, provided they were not, well, not addicted to it, But that's an MMO problem. But with Final Fantasy 11, it's like you have to really decide if you're going to play the game or not because you will be spending a lot of time on it, for better or worse. It's not for everyone.
well, well, I don't think Final Fantasy XI's the greatest example because um on the topic of like open world games,
Yeah,
Final Fantasy 11 compared to more modern games like I'm talking about, Final Fantasy 11 has a lot more limited mobility options.
this is true. It is a actual old, it is actually an old game. It is. There are still things
I
about it that are
know.
quite archaic, and not just the fact that you're expected to basically grind and claw and scratch and survive your way through it. Because while some gamers do prefer and like that, I can't help but say that there are definitely some outdated aspects that needed a much needed new life to breathe. So it was a good thing that the developers of Final Fantasy XIV had to redo everything in order to release it proper as A Realm Reborn, and then be able to make new expansions from there that only further enhances the game to its superiority that it is today. And that's why a lot of people still play FF14, because of how evolved it is and how much more accessible it is. So the robustness is what helps, and not the base game, not when it was in its early days, but the fact that it just gets better and better, like old wine, actually make is the reason why there are so many players playing FF14 today. I think even surpassing how many players there are now in World of Warcraft, which is astonishing.
Yeah, how long has World of Warcraft been around? It's been around since like 2004.
Yes.
Oh my god, World of Warcraft's almost 20 years old.
It was built pretty much roughly around the same era as Final Fantasy 11. Like, geez.
Another thing about it, Final Fantasy and World of Warcraft have quite a lot in common.
Just that,
No, for real, think about it.
yeah,
Final Fantasy 14, no, Final Fantasy 11 is based. It's an MMO based off a pre-existing franchise. World of Warcraft was an MMO based off a pre-existing franchise,
yeah,
and
but
both kind of sort of became defined by their MMO counterparts.
pretty much it's ever evolving and expanding. It just keeps going and going. World of Warcraft, it stands on its own. And it's definitely well, for the most part, it stood the test of time. But the fact that Square went out of their way to make a new FF game, I think that was that was a good call on them. I just don't know why like the studios behind WoW have not done something quite like that. And if they did, something must not be catching on, like Final Fantasy 14 does, because that one has been rising really well.
I, I think at one point I did try Classic World of Warcraft
Hmm.
with two others. It was a friend of mine named, we're just call her female. I don't know. How do you talk about someone online in front of an audience, but you don't want that person to get too much attention? Like you don't want like everyone like staring at them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll just call her M.
That'll do.
Um, yeah. My friend M, she wanted me to play World of Warcraft with her. The classic one that she grew up with. She's like a year younger than me.
Yes.
Um, Yep. Yeah, it was it was when Blizzard actually started rolling out classic servers, and her dad actually also joined us too.
I see.
So that was a little bit awkward at first, but it was actually pretty fun. All of us putting our brains together to figure out where to go. Didn't really have waypoints, like I said, on the map. It did have like little question marks above quest givers' heads once you finish it, but aside from that, you were kind of on your own to find them and to read the instructions.
Ah, well. I mean, I guess it worked out at least.
Yeah, it was actually kind of fun, even though it was a little bit slow and tedious.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that all being said, well, we pretty much covered what we wanted to say regarding MMOs and our experiences to them, and I don't know if I'll ever see myself ever wanting to play or try out another MMO again, because while I do like to watch some people do that sometimes, it's just like I always have this big fear of getting addicted to stuff like that, and I don't want to get addicted ever, because that would ruin my life. That would really ruin me. I have a career to maintain, and that's being a freelance artist.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah. Well.
Plus, nowadays, I think MMOs are kind of dying. Sorry to
Hmm.
like continue on, but like,
Oh no, it's okay.
MMOs are kind of being like phased out for online mobile games.
I could see that. And well, mobile games are kind of a beast of their own. I mean, some of them are made to be played quickly. Some of them are made to be where it's like, oh, you can play through this for a while, but it's designed to where it's like you can also be able to like, you know, get this little like obstacle really quickly, and then like the game will auto save it, or you can save anytime you want. It's like, okay, that's nice. It's like it's one of those things where it's like they just design things in mind. Well, some games that is, and it's like they can be really flexible with stuff like that. Because some people, they're designed to be played on the go, but it's like if you want a game with an actual story and an actual quest, there will need to be a way to design it to where you can still play it in very short bursts of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of like a game in mind right now is like Complex Stream. Complex Stream is like it's a mobile RPG. I mean, I'm not sure why they went that route, but they were apparently the same developers. Just give me a moment. I'll be right back.
Say tired.
All right, sorry about that. We're sorry about this. I'm back. I was actually being
Welcome back.
my door was being knocked, and it's like, okay, I told them not now. Okay, so
Uh,
after what I was saying, mobile games, such as those, they still have RPGs and stuff like that, not just small flash games and whatnot. But Complex Dream was designed and story written by the same developers who did
the RP.
Chrono Cross and another Eden. They even feature the characters there, so in its own game, it's also a crossover of characters, no pun intended, to follow a continuation of a story that they go through in a new arc. So it technically continues the story of both of those game series because of this one game.
I see. I just I never liked mobile games, and I don't really ever plan to get into them simply for just the fact of how hostile they can be in terms of like
Mm,
attempts to make you addicted.
not only
The
that,
like
but
daily login bonuses,
yeah,
the
some of them are also designed to be like really sick cash grabs, even if the game might be a terribly designed one. And it's like, why? It's like, geez, greedy and desperate much?
yeah, then like they always have like these little welcome back things where
Oh
like
no.
after you're gone for so long, they give you like a dozen free draws or something.
It would have been
I
surprising if it's like the game wants you to keep playing, and it's like if you try to quit the game, it'll like guilt trip you and or it'll show you something really like embarrassing or really like over the top just to make you keep playing. It's like seriously.
what do you mean embarrassing?
I don't know. It's like that's how I feel if I was being guilt tripped. I also kind of remember this funny little like design that like if you ever heard of an app called Overwolf.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I
Yeah,
hate it. It feels like bloatware.
I mean, it's kind of a thing that nobody talks about anymore because it's just a passing like app that kind of like Raptor did, but then Raptor eventually died out. Rest in peace. But with Overwolf, it was designed similarly, but if you try to uninstall an app like that, or that kind of app in particular, there's an actual art to it where it says like, "Are you sure you want to?" It basically says like, "Are you sure you want to like say goodbye and like leave everyone behind forever?" And it's like rest in peace, and it actually like writes it has the date like written like the like what day you'll uninstall it as if you were going to the grave, and it's just so dramatic, even though they're just still
What
pictures.
what the what?
It's
I need to
very
look this up.
it's very cartoony. Plus, but if you decide to like not uninstall it, which encourages you to do that, it's like, oh, look, you're born to kill. Yay.
What the fuck?
It's just so silly, but it's like I never thought like a little like app that well, like a multi-platform like gaming communication app would actually have that kind of like touch to it where it's like it guilt trips you to like for trying to uninstall it. It's like, "Oh my God, why are you trying to tug on my heartstrings?"
I do remember the original Overwolf logo though.
Yes. This was back
I
in
thought it was
2013, by
cute.
the way, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I thought it was cute.
Oof.
He's just happy to be there.
Yeah.
But then he grew up, and he hasn't been the same since.
You should show me those, like, oh, okay, here it is. Gosh, so yeah, it looks a bit more modern now.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Hmm.
Honestly, if I saw the Overwolf logo like the original, without knowing it was like for software, I would have thought that it was like for like cheap headphones or something with like cute little logo.
Oh yeah. That being said, it's just become the standard thing. I also suspect that a lot of logos and designs and apps don't use that like shiny 3D look to it anymore in the complexity
I miss
because it
it.
uses too much processing power, especially if a lot of icons at once.
I didn't know that, and that actually makes me feel bad.
Well, I mean, I guess that's why like people who try to operate Windows Vista had a hard time, and it can just slow down and lag a lot because everything was trying too hard to look all graphically pretty. It's a thing.
That's so weird.
I guess that's why I can kind of see why people went with the more flat colored and kind of had no choice. But it's all and not just the fact that it's just become like this almost arbitrary trend when I think like from an operational standpoint, it's not really arbitrary after all. I mean, if you read between the lines, it's like maybe this is why Windows operating systems look like this here and there. and gaming apps, and even like HUD designs from modern video games nowadays, because it's like it's simpler, it's easier to read, it's more concise, to the point, and it's also just like less graphically intensive.
I, 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 I don't think they're really all that graphically intensive. I I kind of miss the more like flashier desktop icons. It's just I kind of get really sick at looking at these very simple, bland ones
I do know
with
what you
like no
mean. I
flavor to
mean,
them.
there was a time where I dearly missed this as too, when they were fresh. I mean, it makes me wonder like how like just like how much full of personality um a lot of app icons used to have, like a Mozilla Firefox, World of Warcraft, other video game logos and shortcuts.
But now they're just.
Even
Why is
YouTube.
talking about this making me upset?
I'm, I know. I don't know. I mean, all I'll say is that even YouTube had like a glossy look to it back then.
I miss the glossy look.
Yeah, a lot of things were glossy, especially in the late 2000s.
I know. Everything looked like candy, almost.
Eye candy, for that matter.
How long have we been doing the podcast, actually?
Well, it should be almost finished. We just already hit an hour. But that being said, I do have to thank you for the video game topic here, our discussion. It's been great sharing our experiences as well as our insights and oversights about like the video game industry, the games themselves, the modders, the hackers, and this also goes for the community, the urban legends, and other stuff we've also talked about and covered that we were able to just flow through. So I definitely have to thank you for that.
No problemo.
Yes, well, that all being said, well, this podcast is pretty much over. So thank you very much, everyone. And I'd like to offer up a little more words and insights about what I think about the video game culture as a whole. Is that when it comes to modern things going on like this, be it anything underneath the umbrella, behind the scenes, the indie studios or the AAA gaming industry, is that it really helps to like just for people to just continue embracing their creativity and not giving up on what they trust or have faith in the most, as far as being either a gamer or a game designer goes. And it's just a lot for us to share insights of and even inspiration. And there's always something to hear about, something to look forward to, facts and new video games. And there's even things that we be either like greatly disappointed in or really anxious about. And it's just kind of how the cookie crumbles and really rolls. Am I right?
Yeah, I guess so. Sorry, my brain is just mush right now.
No, you're fine. You're done. So I definitely have to thank you, and you did well. So you can definitely relax for the night. But as for tonight, this session has officially concluded, and this concludes our first episode of the Yapper Zone, a podcast owned by AzureParagon, hosted by him, and our guest, some guy, is signing out for the night, and I shall sign out as well. Thank you, everybody, and I shall see you tomorrow. Just kidding. I shall see you next week for the next episode. The second episode of this podcast, the topic will be correlating to furry art. And this will be the safer work side of things, not the adult naughty side, but just more of a cultural insight of how things became to be over the years. So look forward to that topic, and I shall see you later. And everyone, have a good night, have a good day, and have a good time. Thank you, be safe, and take care. Bye bye.